Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the Executive Director for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first Managers Monday. And this Managers Monday was brought to you by Essential Education, and it's entitled WIOA Opportunities. Every participant will receive a certificate for CEU verification. This will come to you within 24 hours directly from a company called Zoom, which is the platform that we use. So please give us 24 hours and that certificate will be delivered right to your inbox. Next, I just wanted to mention that you're probably aware that COE delivers more than 50 webinars annually on a number of different topics. We like to bring in national level presenters that have presented at our conference and that receive excellent reviews from attendees. And all of these webinars are made possible through generous sponsorship by our sponsors. I mentioned about our Managers Monday. The next four that we have are at the NRS, talking about basic adult education structure and activities, IET and career pathways, as well as leveraging WIOA Title II funds with other resources. All of these resources, all of these webinars will be uploaded to our adult educator repository as well as our website. And I'd like to encourage you all, if you haven't had a chance to get on that adult educators repository, there are some just excellent resources. And there's a beautiful community of practice there as well. So if you have something you'd like to share with others or best practice, it's a great place to do that, a very safe place and a place where other educators are there and can give you some input and feedback. That was also made possible through Essential Education, who's our sponsor today. As well, we have some COE Board of Directors leadership opportunities coming up. The Vice President for Membership, as well as the Region 2, Region 4, and Region 6 positions. We also have the President-elect, but the reason why that's not listed here is that the President-elect position is only open to those that are currently serving on our board in an elected position. So the rest of these, the Vice President for Membership, our Region 2, 4, and 6 representatives are open to all. Also, we've got some fantastic national level awards. $10,000 each for the Teacher of the Year, Administrator of the Year, and Adult Learner of the Year. We're thinking there must be, thousands and thousands out there, right, of fantastic teachers, administrators, and adult learners. So if you know of somebody that you think, should be recognized, we encourage you to go online and submit an application. As well, we have the State Innovator, which is where we really want to bring to the top innovative state practices. The Workplace of the Year is where we're trying to support WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which it calls for Title I and Title II to be working well together. So if you know of an outstanding employer, someone who works really well with your program, we encourage you to nominate them. And then this Advocate of the Year is a new one. This one it's very near and dear to my heart because this is why we were able to stave off $87 million in funding cuts and successfully add $60 million to WIOA Title II. As many of you know, we had more than 86,000 contacts with the field. We'd send out legislative alerts, and the field would respond, and they would then go into our Educate and Elevate system and contact their legislator, everything from mayors to state level to federal level legislators. And through that, we were able to really come together as a field. So if you're somebody who has taken action on account of adult education, I would really like for you to consider submitting an application for the COE Advocate of the Year Award. We also have adult learner membership. This year only is going to be free. So for all of you out there, all of you administrators that have programs, all of your adult learners can be on board with this, free of charge to them. With that, they get the option to apply for free free life insurance, typically $60,000 per year, and that's free to them. And then as well, they can be nominated for the Adult Learner of the Year Award for $10,000 and a number of other membership benefits. I also want to mention that in the state of Pennsylvania, we had something very interesting happen. 2 administrators went around during Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week and encouraged their students to take action. And there was more than 1,200 connections to legislators in Pennsylvania strictly by students during Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week. So the power of adult learners it's really exponential. We were able to even get 10% of the 1.5 million adult learners that are out there talking to their legislators, telling their story. I don't think we'd ever be in a hurt for funding again. So I just really want to encourage you, this is a great way to get your students on board. We'll also have a student strand at the conference, by the way, student-led strand at our national conference for the second year in a row. So our national conference is March 31st or April 3rd. It's in New Orleans, Louisiana. Right now we have our mini grant opportunities open. The mini grants defray the cost of registration at $350. We're going to give out 50 mini grants. So if you have not done so yet, I encourage you to apply for a mini grant today. And adult learners are also, they can apply as well. Last but not least, I want to mention that we have a national journal. We really took a new tact with our journal. We rebranded and refocused it. We wanted it to be practitioner to practitioner based instead of really heavy on the research side. There's definitely research, and it's definitely, you know, a very classy piece, but it's also much more practitioner focused. So we encourage you, if you've not done so yet, you can submit a manuscript for review. This last COEAP journal had more than 11,000 downloads, and it was a special edition on career pathways. So with all of that, I'd now like to get back to our webinar. This webinar is made possible with the support of Essential Education. That's why we're able to do this free of charge. So I'd like to turn this over to John Ballantyne with Essential Education. John? John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. You sharing your screen. Okay. Excellent.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that.
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank Sharon and COEAP for the opportunity to visit with everyone on this webinar. As she stated, my name is Ballantyne. I'm an adult education solutions specialist for Essential Education. You can see that I am not Dan Griffith. His name is on the presentation. However, I'm going to keep Dan's name on this presentation in case I make any mistakes. So what I want to share with you briefly is that at Essential Education, some of you may be aware of what we do and some may not, but we do provide a complete solution for learners. But I just want to take a hone in on programs that we've tied specifically to WIOA, and that is our Life Essential courses and our career exploration and tool for adult students called Dreamcatcher Advance. First, our Life Essentials courses were designed to address and close the gap between academic learning and job training by helping adult learners meet the needs of employers. Primarily those needs are digital literacy, employability skills, and financial literacy. Our three Life Essentials courses, they're called Computer Essentials, Work Essentials, and Money Essentials. All three of these courses are built on the same engine that includes virtual tutors available for your adult students 24/7. Our Computer Essentials course is a digital literacy exam. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. It's called the I3. This course, there's a pull-down menu of every lesson in the course, objectives along that exam. There's over 4 lessons to teach basic computing skills. It prints out a silver, gold, or platinum certificate for your students, helping provide those stackable credentials, and also provides excellent support for your ESL learners, helping them read with reading comprehension and listening skills while they're getting a workplace certificate. Our Work Essentials course has 20 lessons designed to cover key employability skills, and you can probably see on the screen some of the units, those key skills including communication, working with others, and professionalism. The Work Essentials course is easily integrated into any training program, and just like the other course, the Computer Essentials, it also prints a silver, gold, or platinum certificate to help your students with those stackable credentials. Essentials course, I briefly want to talk to you on the essentials. I think we all understand the importance of money and financial literacy. This course can be used for a personal finance course. It covers basic financial concepts, helps students develop understanding responsibility. The skills that your students learn in this course are transferred between personal, family, community, and workplace. This course, as well as the previous two, the computer and the work, prints out silver, gold, or platinum certificates once again. Real quick, you can purchase each course separately, or if you purchase all three of these Life Essentials courses, you can do that for a significant discount. And then the last, our latest program I wanted to talk to you briefly about, it's called Dreamcatcher Advance. This is a career exploration planning tool for your adult learners. It has 5 engaging lessons that lead to a personalized action. You could use this course as an intake orientation process, and it can also be integrated into academic and career programs as well. One of the great things about it is once a student has an account, there is no expiration dates. Just to talk to you briefly about our commitment to adult education and supporting you and your students, I wanted to share with you some commitment, which includes several free resources we provide adult educators, such as College and Career Readiness Roadmap, content maps and curriculum blueprints, the Blended Learning Guide, our sponsorship of the COABE repository that Sharon briefly mentioned, and our free PD webinars covering a variety of topics Tuesdays, and they're called TWEED. We want to thank each one of you for your extraordinary dedication to adult education for students, and we look forward to working with you and help students achieve their life goals. I would like to thank COABE for their partnership and giving us a few minutes this afternoon to share with you some of our WIOA solutions. And the last thing I want to leave you with is contact information. So if you have any questions you'd like to learn more about the programs I briefly touched on, please contact Dan Griffith or myself, and it's very simple. Our email addresses, it's simply dan@essentialed.com or john@essentialed.com. So thank you once again, and thank you for what you do. I would like to now pass the mic back over to Sharon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, John. And to those who were experiencing some difficulty hearing John, I believe it was the audio on his end just due to the internet, so apologize for that. John, if you're able to stop sharing your screen, that would be helpful. We do want to thank Essential Education because without them, this webinar would not be possible. I would also like to ask those who are on if they take just a quick minute here to go ahead and type in the chat box your name and where you're from. While John is pulling down his slides, I'm going to take a minute here to introduce our guest, who's Erin Roth. So Erin Roth is the Director of Policy for the Maryland Department of Labor, Licensing, and Regulations Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. In this role, she spearheads major initiatives and policy innovations for the division to ensure businesses and job seekers have the opportunities and support needed to thrive in today's economy. Erin also chairs Maryland's statewide policy committee for implementation of the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. You can see why we were so excited when she was willing to do this webinar for us. She is a recognized thought leader on apprenticeship, immigrant integration, career pathways, and on how to successfully align the work of multiple agencies serving mutual customers in a transparent and meaningful way. Erin has worked for Maryland's Labor Department since 2009. Prior to joining the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning, she worked in the Division of Unemployment Insurance, supporting reemployment efforts during the height of the Great Recession. She also holds her bachelor's in global studies from Loyola University, Maryland, and her master's in public policy from Johns Hopkins University. And so we are just delighted to welcome Erin today as our featured presenter. And Erin, I know that it looks like John is working on pulling down his...
Sorry, Sharon, I'm not even seeing the option. It's not up on my screen to stop the share.
Okay, hold on one second here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay, it's okay. Okay, so Erin, are you there?
Hi, I am.
Okay, great.
Share my screen here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, did that work?
Yes, ma'am, it does. I'm going to stop my video and just hand this off to you. Thank you, Erin.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sharon and John from Essential Education, for making today's COA presentation possible. I'm really excited about the opportunity to share what I've learned here in Maryland, working to implement the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And thanks to the audience for joining in. I really hope that you find this to be a good use of your time. So again, my name is Erin Roth. I have been serving as the Director of Policy here for the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. About 2 months ago, I stepped into an acting role. So I'm currently, in addition to the Policy Director, the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for the division. Again, I'm really thrilled to be here today. Okay, so what is today's presentation all about? I'd like to cover 3 main objectives here. First, what's really changed from WIA to WIOA? Second, where are the opportunities to improve services for the adult learner? And third, what are some practical tips for partnering? Okay, so first, let's just consider what the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA or WIOA, is all about. WIOA is landmark legislation that's designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system. It's designed with 2 customers in mind. First, the job seeker, and second, the business, equally important. And WIOA is really built on the concept that a strong public workforce system must work for both customers, both job seekers and businesses alike. We have to help the job seekers prepare for good jobs that are in demand, and we must connect qualified workers with employers that are in need of talent. So by focusing on both customers' needs, the business and the job seeker, the workforce system will support economic growth and vitality. First, let's just give a little more background. So what's the same? WIOA, first of all, was passed by Congress in 2014. Many of you likely already know. And this was the first update in workforce system legislation since the Workforce Investment Act, WIA, of 1998. Now, a lot changed in the world in those 16 years, including drastically changed talent needs from employers and leaps in technology. Think about what we're doing right now and whether that would happen 16 years ago to receive professional development in this way. So a lot of the traditional job search strategies were rendered obsolete over these 16 years. And so we really needed to take a close look, and Congress did just that with WIOA. So what elements from the previous WIA law were more or less continued under WIOA, and what changes did the new law make? Okay, so what stayed the same? First, I'd say the structure of the legislation still is basically the same. So there are a number of titles, right? So Title I, that is serving the adults, dislocated worker, and youth, 3 main programs that are provided by the local workforce boards in your state. Title II, well, that should be familiar. That's adult education. Title III, that's providing Wagner-Pizer employment services, also in the American Job Centers, alongside Title I. Title IV, that's rehabilitation services. So they're all focused on serving individuals with disabilities who are seeking employment. So the structure really didn't change too much under this new act. The second piece I wanted to hone in on is the workforce boards. So there's still a workforce board that sits over top of the state workforce activities, in addition to the local workforce activities. And what is important here that has not changed is that there's still a business majority for each workforce board. This is statutorily required, and it's important to ensure, again, that our customers are kept at the heart of our decision making, both business and job seeker. Third, the American Job Centers. Maybe in your state you call them one-stop career centers. American Job Centers is the new term, but really the fact that there are public employment offices located across the state that really serve as this one-stop shop for the services of a range of partners, again, to support both customers, that is still the same. Okay, so what's different then? Well, first, There's an increased focus on serving the most vulnerable job seekers, low-income adults and youth who have limited skills, lack work experience, and face other barriers to economic success. First, it's important to just note that there's a new term, basic skills deficient. This is a term that is oversees all of the titles I mentioned, and it's now aligned across titles. In a nutshell, it means that someone is at or below the 8th grade level. Individuals who are basic skills deficient get priority, this is new, for Title I adult program services in the American Job Centers. Other priority populations that I believe will resonate with you, adult education, are individuals facing substantial cultural barriers, individuals with disabilities, including youth with disabilities, individuals who are English language learners, individuals who have low levels of literacy, individuals without a high school diploma, and low-income individuals, including recipients of Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, and SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So those are some of the target populations that this act is really meant to support. A big difference here that I believe is advantageous for the adult learner is that many of the populations that are called out as priority groups are likely being served in adult basic ed or English language classes that, again, provided by you, Title II. The next piece here that's different is that WIOA eliminates the requirement of having a quote-unquote sequence of services. So what does this mean? Well, under WIA, American Job Centers were required to provide a sequence of services. This meant that everyone, regardless of need or interest, they would need to participate in the same services in the same order to fully take advantage of what the American Job Center offered. Now, WIOA does away with the sequence of service requirements, so you should really see a shift happening in your American Job Center in your state where services are more immediately customized to the needs of the customer. This recognizes that not all customers require the same services in the same order. Next, WIOA aligns performance accountability across the system. Why is this a big deal? Well, it's an important step because now, for the first time, the goals across the various titles of the programs authorized under WIOA are aligned. If each program is working towards different performance deliverables, it's not impossible to work together, but it can make it awfully challenging, at least in my experience. So this is a really big deal. And, you know, just a caveat here, a disclaimer of sorts, is that it's not perfect yet. This is new. And so our federal partners are still figuring out some of the complexities related to aligning performance measures. But the important thing to recognize here, from my perspective, is that there's a major alignment opportunity which should facilitate partnership across titles. Okay, next. Increased emphasis on the utilization of IET, Integrated Education and Training. Okay, so IET. As many of you likely already know, IET has 3 main components. There's adult education and literacy, second, workforce preparation, and third, workforce training. So each component, per federal regulations, should be organized to function cooperatively with a single set of learning outcomes. Combining education and training to complement each other is a proven model for effectively delivering services. IET programming is rooted in goal-oriented, relevant, practical knowledge for the learners, and it's industry-driven. That's really important to ensure that job seekers are getting what they need, but also to ensure that the business customer gets what they need too. And it's important also to note that long before WIOA ever passed, we saw great examples of success in IET that we can look up to, such as, shout out to Washington State for your IBEST model and pre-apprenticeship bridge type programming, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's another good example of IET. So Congress basically recognized that these were successful models and they formalized the importance of the IET model through WIOA. Last for this slide, another major difference from my perspective is that the allocation of funds under this new act, it's more heavily focused on out-of-school youth. Okay, so here we see a shift from spending on in-school youth programming to out-of-school youth programming. Why? Because Congress felt that there were lots of resources invested in the schools, the high schools, et cetera, and far fewer investments were happening in young individuals who were neither in school or work. So in Maryland, a big conversation when WIOA first passed was around the question, what are we going to do to find these people? And if they're not in school and they're not in work, I think they're going to be difficult to identify. That's really what people were concerned about when this first rolled out. From my perspective, first, it's important to note that they haven't included adult education as school in this definition. So they were getting at secondary school here, high schools. And where are these individuals? Back to that question. Well, they're likely in adult education classes, public assistance offices, connected community action agencies, and other local existing resources to support individuals facing barriers. So WIOA recognizes the need to support this population out-of-school youth, and thus, this is another opportunity for adult educators to connect with workforce partners. Shared customers, right? So under WIOA, the other thing to mention is that the youth program actually must be assessed by NRS approved assessments, National Reporting System. We're talking CASAS or TABE, et cetera. And the program, so again, that's an alignment opportunity. And the program itself consists of 14 program elements, including some things, again, that might resonate with adult education as opportunities if you're not already engaged in this space. Here are a few of the program elements. Tutoring, skills training, and dropout prevention. Financial literacy education. Concurrent education and workforce preparation activities. IET. And preparing for post-secondary education. So again, there's an opportunity here to connect what adult educators and AJC Title I partners provide. Building connections. So I've already started to allude to some of the connection points, but now I'd like to take a little more closely of a look at some of the most important elements of WIOA, beginning with the new requirement for unified planning. So WIOA places a heightened expectation on unified planning, both at the state level and at the local level. This is basically new. So states and local areas may or may not have mechanisms already in place to get this more collaborative ball rolling. But the bottom line is that I encourage you to be ready to take the initiative to begin making connections with your WIOA partners. Don't wait for someone to reach out to you. Go knock on that door and get involved. There are a lot of opportunities at the local board level to build relationships, to leverage funding, to participate in developing policies and procedures, and to implement integrated programming that will benefit shared customers, both business and job seeker. Okay, so now I'll get into a little more in depth into some of the major opportunities from my perspective. Performance alignment. Okay, so on this slide, I've listed the 6 common measures of performance under WIOA. I am not going to walk you through the definitions or nuances of these measures, but I think it's really important to note that they are aligned across titles. Also important to note that there's an opportunity here. Historically, across the country, we saw under WIA that sometimes the strive for continuous improvement and focus on performance, I believe it inadvertently shut some people, usually more vulnerable people, out of opportunities. Now, under WIOA, performance standards are determined through a statistical model. That's intended to account for who is being served. If under WIOA, we're now focusing on serving individuals with barriers to employment, which we are, then I'd say that there must be recognition that this might take more time, and it might take more money per participant. But that is really our target priority population. They might need a little more assistance, and that's okay. So if we're truly prioritizing the WIOA priority populations, I'd say the good news here is that this statistical model that the federal partners has created will account for who is receiving services, and it will adjust accordingly. So in other words, the federal performance expectations could be lowered to account for the fact that vulnerable individuals are now getting better access to services and training under WIOA that perhaps they weren't receiving under WIA. Another disclaimer here on the performance front is that the feds are still working out the kinks on this front. But bottom line, again, you should see this as an opportunity to have adult learners receive those Title I American Job Center services, whereas they may have previously been shut out from accessing these opportunities due to your local partners' fears of bringing down performance. This model takes that fear away. Opportunity. Okay, next slide here. Opportunity for target populations. We basically covered this one already, but the one piece I didn't mention that I'll touch on now is the last bullet on veterans' priority of service. I'm going to go into a little more detail here. For the WIOA Title I adult program, veterans receive priority of service. So what does this mean? How does this play out? Let me try to explain. Priority of service means the right of precedence over others in obtaining services. And per WIOA regulations, this might mean that the covered person receives access to the service or resource earlier in time, or it could mean that the covered person receives access instead of a non-covered person, recognizing that resources are at times limited and should go to priority populations. So under the WIOA Title I adult program, the first priority must go to veterans and eligible spouses who are also recipients of public assistance, or are low income, or are basic skills deficient. Okay, that's priority group 1. Next priority goes to individuals who are not veterans, but they're public assistance recipients, or low income, or are basic skills deficient. The third priority goes to veterans and eligible spouses who don't fit into the previously mentioned categories. Okay, and the fourth priority goes to any other population identified by the governor or the local workforce development board for priority. So to give you an example, in Maryland, we decided to include the long-term unemployed, defined by 6 months plus of unemployment, among our priority populations. And then fifth, well, that's everyone else that wasn't already mentioned and doesn't already fit into one of those previous priorities. So I hope you can see how this new priority of service structure can benefit your adult learners. Okay, next slide is about career pathways. So what you have in front of you is the WIOA definition of career pathway, and I imagine that this looks familiar. It's important to note that this is a common definition for all of our WIOA partners, including adult education, but also including those American Job Center partners, and voc rehab too. So as an aside, I'd also think it's wise to mention and point out here that there's a new definition. This is the definition of career pathways under Perkins 5 legislation that very recently passed, and it oversees career and technical education, CTE, in the states. Another opportunity where Congress sought to align activities across these major systems, and in my perspective, it makes a lot of sense. So again, WIOA charges each partner to think about career pathways in the same way and to partner to provide these career opportunities. I believe that there's huge opportunity here for partnership. In fact, I would actually go as far as to say that one partner cannot be truly, fully successful in providing a career pathway alone. And again, the other piece I'd highlight here is that career pathways work for both customers, the job seeker and the business. These career pathways that we design need to be set up to support our business customers, meeting their hiring needs, which in turn sets the job seeker customer up for success. To share a little bit about what we're up to in Maryland, under Governor Larry Hogan's leadership, we've recently invested $1.1 million into a career pathway co-enrollment initiative that I'm really excited about. It's specifically targeting adult learners that are receiving adult education through Title II And our goal is to get them access to WIOA Title I training and educational opportunities. We saw that there was an opportunity to increase the number of co-enrollments that were happening across these two titles. And this investment, we very much hope will bring positive results in that realm. So we're using $1.1 million from our governor's set-aside funding. I mention this because if you're not already familiar, the governor's set-aside funding is flexible funding that each state has to support innovative work under WIOA. And this is another opportunity. So if you don't know already, I would encourage you to find out what your state is doing with these funds, and perhaps there's a partnership opportunity. Maybe there's a chance for you to get involved in the discussions that, or the programs that are already funded through this governor's set-aside funding. And for our project here in Maryland, we believe that by incentivizing co-enrollment, we will maximize resources and streamline practices to enhance the customer experience. It's all about the customer, and to increase the likelihood that adult learners, that they achieve their employment goals that are tied to in-demand industries, and to ultimately help them to reach self-sufficiency. I believe that career pathways should be looked at as an opportunity, and if there's time at the end, I'd be happy to share a little more details about what Maryland's doing. We're funding 5 projects through this exciting initiative. Okay, more opportunities for partnership under WIOA. Again, we've already gone into some of these, like local planning and co-enrollment. Local planning and co-enrollment, huge opportunities again. I just spoke just a minute ago about co-enrollment, and earlier I touched on the opportunity for unified state and local planning. One thing that's just very practical to keep in mind is that each state has a state plan, the state workforce plan under WIOA. And this is a 4-year document, but it's revised every 2 years. That's a requirement. So all states throughout the country just recently revised their state plan. Maryland, for example, our new revised state plan was approved in August 2018. So again, this is very new information. Similarly to the state, each local workforce board has a local workforce plan, and the local workforce plans must conform to the state plan. Just like the state, these are 4-year documents that are revised after 2 years. So in Maryland, our local workforce boards are currently working to update these plans. And I suspect that is likely happening or getting ready to happen across the whole country right now. So if you're involved, great. And if you're not, I would encourage you to get involved. So how? Well, as a first step, I would reach out to your local workforce board partner to learn where they are in the process of local planning and to see how you can lend a hand. In the process of helping a local board, I believe you could very well cement your partnership if you haven't already done so. So this is a huge opportunity, and essentially it only comes around once every 2 years, and the time is now. Okay, the next bullet here, registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. So I touched on pre-apprenticeship very briefly when reviewing IET, but let me take a step back and just give some basics on registered apprenticeship. Registered apprenticeship is a paid job from day one. And as an apprentice's skills increase, so do their wages. This is one of the reasons that pretty much everyone can get on board with apprenticeship. The model involves 2 buckets of activities. The first bucket is on-the-job training to get that practical experience. And the second is the related classroom instruction. Now, if you don't already know, most states across the country right now are heavily investing in apprenticeship. This model, it's worked for a long time in the skilled trades, still works well for the skilled trades. And so some states, many states, most states, in fact, like Maryland, are actively working to expand the apprenticeship model to create new programs in non-traditional sectors, such as hospitality, tree care, social media, etc. And states are also looking to expand registered apprenticeship to non-traditional populations, Well, what does that mean? Historically, apprenticeship participants have been mostly men, specifically mostly white men. And so states are really looking to expand these career pathway opportunities to include other populations such as women, minorities, immigrants, individuals with disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. Think back to some of those target populations. I know that's who we're looking to expand these opportunities to in Maryland. Okay, so now you have a crash course on registered apprenticeship. Again, job from day one. So what is pre-apprenticeship then? Well, I would recommend that you think of pre-apprenticeship as the perfect opportunity to support an individual in gaining skills to support their successful entry into a registered apprenticeship. Which again, registered apprenticeship is a paid job from day one, and as your skills increase, so do your wages. The big reason, at least in Maryland, that people don't get accepted into those registered apprenticeship paid opportunities is because sometimes they're not able to pass those math and reading assessments that are provided as before entry. So I'm hoping that you see the opportunity here that adult education providers, I believe, would be well poised to help individuals improve their literacy and numeracy skills. And by partnering with sponsors of existing registered apprenticeship programs, adult education providers can create pre-apprenticeship programs that provide a bridge to accessing these careers. This is a huge opportunity. And again, this is an on-ramp into a career pathway. And generally speaking, states have money to invest and support in this work right now. So if you're not already, get connected to your apprenticeship teams and be a part of this exciting effort. Next, incumbent worker training and upskilling. So WIOA allows for incumbent workers to receive training. And if you don't know the term incumbent worker, an incumbent worker is someone who's already working in a job for 6 months or more, specifically. So this training and education for incumbent workers is available to support these individuals who are already in jobs to get upskilled along that career pathway. Most local areas in your state are likely offering this incumbent worker training through WIOA. And in Maryland, we are also, on top of the local opportunities, we're funding incumbent worker training at the state level, again with our governor's set-aside funding, through a program called Maryland Business Work. So sometimes upskilling will need to involve improving literacy and numeracy. It's often the case. And again, this is an opportunity for adult education to partner and to get involved. So to give you an example of where we have done this incumbent worker training, upskilling in the context of adult education through our Maryland Business Works program, let's turn to Howard County in Maryland. So real example, Next Day Blinds, our employer partner, they upskilled limited English proficient LEP staff through on-site ESL classes. So they partnered with the Title II provider, the community college in this case, to deliver the course instruction, and the employer and the community college worked together to arrange for classes at the employer site. And this was really important for practical reasons, basically so that the workers could attend class before or after their shift. It's a win. It's an opportunity for you to explore. Next, coordination of assessments. Okay, so I alluded to this, coordinating assessments, when talking about the increased emphasis WIOA places on serving out-of-school youth, but I believe this is actually a much broader opportunity. So did you know that your Title I partners, like I mentioned earlier, are required to assess individuals following the same standards as you that are set by the National Reporting System? It's true. So for this reason in Maryland, recognizing this, we saw the alignment opportunity, and now we require our Title I and Title II partners to work together to align these activities across the local areas. And we now require partners to describe how this will occur locally in those WIOA local plans. Mentioned that's happening right now. So if you're not already, why should you consider coordinating assessments of this type? I believe it will enhance the customer experience. There's a goal here of limiting the over-assessment of individuals. And let's face it, often these are individuals who likely don't love assessments to begin with. So when we can reduce that over-assessing, let's seize that opportunity. It's also, along the way, going to help us maximize our resources. Huge opportunity. Last for this slide is the eligible training provider list. So finally, adult education has the opportunity to access funding through Title I through the individualized training accounts, ITA, by placing programs on the eligible training provider list, often referred to as ETPL. WIOA lays out a number of requirements for states as it relates to the ETPL, eligible training provider list. But ultimately, when you read the 200+ pages of regulations, which I'm not necessarily encouraging you to do, you will find that this is ultimately a pretty flexible state-driven process. States and governors are really given the discretion of how this will be set up state by state. So I would encourage you to check out how your state handles this and see how you might apply to get your programs on the ETPL. It doesn't guarantee you funding, but it at least presents another opportunity for another funding stream to support the adult learner in your state. Okay, so the third objective here, if you remember from the very beginning, was to provide some just practical tips. A disclaimer here, these are not official psychometrically sound tips. These come from the school of Erin Roth, that's me, and basically these are my own learnings on what has worked well as I've coordinated partnerships in Maryland to successfully implement WIOA. So I mentioned local planning and state planning. What I didn't mention is I really helped to spearhead Maryland's state planning efforts. And again, these are things that I found to be very helpful, practical tips. They might seem really simple and obvious, but I think that's okay if they're effective, right? So hold regular meetings. I would ask questions. Even if you feel like you should already know the answer, ask the question. Try to stop speaking in acronyms and jargon. Now, this is one I get on our team here in Maryland about all the time. But it's because if I've learned anything, I've learned that each title of WIOA, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, has its own separate language. And that might work okay in certain situations, but when we're pulling partners together to figure out common ground, if we aren't speaking the same language, it's going to take longer to make progress. People might just be nodding along but have no idea what you're saying. So I'd say the easy solution here is to try and stop speaking in acronyms. Maybe try just one day, starting tomorrow. No acronyms. It's harder than you'd think. And I know that I haven't done the best job of that in this presentation, but it's true that even if there are acronyms that your partners should maybe already know, just say it all out. The other thing here is that feeling uncomfortable, it's gonna happen. It's inevitable, but it's not reason to stop communicating or to stop the partnership from forming. We have different perspectives by design, and we have different types of expertise. Again, by design. So naturally, there will be times where you're questioned and you'll experience some pushback. This is okay. This is healthy. And if you ask me, it's all part of the process. We're stronger for the pushback, that healthy push and pull. Half-baked ideas. Okay, so if you know me personally, you know that I love a good half-baked idea. I'm not shy about sharing my own half-baked ideas with the team or with partners, and I really, truly always encourage my partners to be the same way with me. I love half-baked ideas, and the reason why is that I find that they often present connection points that might not be obvious. So when the partner brings you a half-baked idea, I encourage you, even if it doesn't fully make sense, don't just shoot it down. Don't. Try to take the time to see if there's some potential there. And And if there's really no potential, sort of no nugget in there of good idea, well, let's use it as an educational opportunity. Don't just shoot it down without explaining why. And that is at times going to require patience with your partner. Patience is really important. I know I appreciate it as I learn about my partner's titles. So the last piece here that I really want to mention is that look for the common ground and don't just look for money. At the end of the day, just remember the big picture. And the big picture is really this: our customers must be at the heart of our decision making. So thank you so much. And now, if there's time, I'd love to open it up for a few questions, but I'll turn it back to Sharon. Thanks.
Erin, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You've done a fantastic job. Please do feel free to go ahead with the questions, and if I can help you in any way, just let me know.
Okay, I am pulling them up here. Let's see, there are many, many messages. A lot of hellos. Okay, bear with me, everyone. Just scrolling through. Oh, we have a lot of people on here. Okay, still getting through to the question part.
Erin, if you look there in the Q&A, that's where people should have posted their questions. Do you see that, the Q&A portion?
I do. Okay, thank you, Sharon. Rookie move. Okay, so thanks for having patience with me. So far, I think there's just one question, and it's actually wondering if there's a download to the slides. So I believe, as Sharon mentioned at the beginning, that the presentation will be available on COABE's website. Is that right, Sharon?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, so another question asking if this will be posted so that they can listen in again. Yep. And it seems like the state has a lot of discretion on how to proceed and spend funds. So can you recap those areas that are open to interpretation? Oh, okay, so I would say, first of all, there's the governor's set-aside funding. So that does come off the top of that Title I funding stream, but it goes to the state, the governor specifically, to figure out how, what innovative programs you'd like to lift up in your state. Usually if you look at the state plan, you can see very clearly where your state's priorities are for that funding. So that's one. Gosh, there's just so much. Well, let's think. So title by title. So overall, I would really say that there are some requirements federally, but there is so much discretion left to the state. I think that's one of the challenges, right? And the opportunities between the different titles, between how you use that governor set-aside funding, how you set up your eligible training provider list, coordinating assessments. I think there are funding implications there, right? Because if you coordinate in a way that, I don't know, for example, has your adult education provider delivering the assessment, your local workforce partner might not need as much resources for that, or perhaps they'd be contributing resources through the WIOA infrastructure cost agreement or the MOU to adult education. So I think in general, sometimes we shy away or believe that the feds have told us how everything has to be. But what I've found here in Maryland is that when we look closely at what is required, a lot might be required for states to say how it will be, but there's that flexibility that's left there. So I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. This comes from Allison. We and our partners are all meeting out. Any suggestions? All meeting out to me often means that maybe you're meeting on the same topic. So I think that there are a lot of different ways to communicate. It depends on the size of your state. I think how, whether you're doing in person or forums such as this, but if I'd love to maybe share more offline about and learn a little bit more about what you're meeting on to maybe see some opportunities for where you might be able to meet. The other thing is, I think when we first started WIOA, there were a lot of meetings in Maryland. We had a lot of work groups, and I do believe that people were kind of getting, that change fatigue, the meeting fatigue. What we have found, and we have something that we set up called the WIOA Alignment Group. So that's a state leadership group. I sit on that group, and we have not run out of things to talk about. So we meet on a monthly basis, and we thought at some point we might go bi-monthly, we might go quarterly. And we're 4 years into implementing this act, and we are still finding that we just have a laundry list of things to meet on, because sometimes partners are sharing new opportunities. Sometimes there might be something that we all need to work on together, like the state plan. And I believe that, this is a state example, but it resonates locally too. So Allison, I'd love for you to reach out to me, and if I can help, I'd be happy to. Okay, so it's 3:55. Sharon, should I keep going?
Yes, please do. We can go right to the end of the hour here at 4 o'clock.
Okay, great. So this next question comes from Christy. Christy says that the only research I've seen shows that the positive impact of participation in adult education services reveals itself 5 to 10 after participation and are closely tied to the number of hours of attendance. The more, the better. So how do we square this with the WIOA reporting requirements of 6 to 12 months? Other research out there? That is a good question. I'd like to know the answer. I can't claim expertise on that one, so I'm going to move along to the next. Are customers students or businesses? This question comes from Anita. Both. So business, again, must be at the heart of our decision making, because if we, in Maryland, what we sometimes say is that if we don't have our business partner engaged in our decision making, we might be inadvertently training and praying. So let me give you an example of what I mean by train and pray. And this is how not to do business. Train and pray means maybe you look at the labor market information, you see that there's, or maybe you just know that there are a lot of healthcare jobs in your state, in your local area. So start educating and training people for all of these healthcare jobs without ever talking to the employer to figure out whether what you're doing, A, meets their occupational hiring needs, and B, does it make sense for the learner? So training and praying gets you into trouble because sometimes we vary from a well-intentioned approach, start training, and then once the training's done, we cross our fingers and we just pray that it's going to work out and they're going to magically get connected to that employer within healthcare, right? Sometimes that happens, but the better way that I would encourage you to think about is connecting with that business customer and understanding their needs on the front end, and that will be doing a major service to the job seeker customer, the learner, the student, who, they don't want to go through a training program that isn't going to help get them to that career. So by partnering and thinking about both customers, we're really doing a service to the other customer and helping to grow the economy. Okay, let's see. I'm reading the questions here. It seems that a lot of people want to know the answer to the question about the research. I'm also interested in that. As I mentioned, I don't know the answer. Do you have any experience from the prison population? It's difficult to report measures after exit due to laws permitting contact between prison staff and released students and inmates. Yeah, so in Maryland, we actually oversee within my division, the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning at the Labor Department. We oversee workforce development, adult education, and correctional education. So we are actually the same division that's offering GED or just basic ed prep and occupational skills training. I know that it is tough to, that the staff in the prisons, once somebody's been released, we're not able to connect with them unless they come to us. But I believe with releases up front, I would check with your attorney generals or legal team, but with releases up front, that they're willing to have you follow their wage records, for example. There are ways to see how people are doing. Unemployment insurance, so they, in each state, like at least in Maryland, house the wage records. And so I would, as a starting place, connect with them to see what capabilities exist, how other programs are doing it. But I do think that it's not impossible, but you have to be careful. Okay, so are your adult learners required to have a GED or high school diploma before entering into internship opportunities? Internship opportunities, maybe, maybe not. Apprenticeship opportunities, which again are a job from day one. Mostly in Maryland at this point in time, yes, but it's changing. Why is it changing? In part, I think it's changing because unemployment rates are low and employers need people. And that gives us an opportunity to push the envelope just a little more and say, well, why do you need them to have the high school diploma? And so we have partnered with groups in Maryland, like the Finishing Trades Institute, and they're willing to hire learners who do not yet have their high school diploma if they're committed to, while they're doing the apprenticeship program, to continuing their education. We have a couple other examples of sponsors of registered apprenticeship programs that are looking to innovate in this way, and we're really excited about it and plan to seize the opportunity. I hope that we see more and more of that. Okay, so we're at 4:01. So I think I'm going to stop here if that's all right with you, Sharon.
That's great. Thank you so much, Erin. We really, really appreciate this. We do have all of your questions, all the questions here that folks have submitted, and we will forward those on to you. So if there's additional follow-up needed, I do anticipate we can get back to them. But I just want to say thank you. This has been very helpful, and you can see we've had great participation from the audience. So thank you, everybody, and a special thank you to you, Erin, for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week on our next Managers Monday, next week at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard. Bye now.